Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hello and welcome to the class of social science. Today we are going to study history. Lesson number 1 that we have started in our last class. In our last class we studied what is history. Okay, what is the meaning of history? We saw that we use different words to measure time, right? Now, then, next year, last year, today, tomorrow, right? Why we use these words? To show the timings that when the things have happened. Like if you say here, we have studied about the past, the present and the future. The present is now. The present is today, like you are 10 years old. But when you were born 10 years back, okay, that was your past. So from the day you were born till today, everything that have happened is called past. Alright, and from today onwards till next 10 years when you will be 20 years old, all those things, all those events, everything till next 10 years will be called your future. Understood? So we saw the meaning of history. The science that tries to understand past events is called history. That means in the history subject we study the events that have already happened in the past. Okay. Now let's see what is the scientific method of history. That means how we can understand history in scientific way. Okay, how we can study history in a scientific way. In standard 3 and 4, as a part of environmental studies, we have become acquainted with various sciences. The special characteristics of all these sciences is that their facts or evidence can be tested in experiments which can be repeated anywhere and anytime. Like when we were studying environmental science last year, we did many kinds of experiments to understand the concept. And those experiments can be done over and over again many times at anywhere and anytime, right? We can do it again and again whenever we want to understand the concept. Okay, the method of using a number of different tests to determine whether the evidence is reliable is called the scientific method. That means when we use different kinds of methods or we use different kinds of tests to prove the prove that the evidence is reliable, those methods are called scientific methods. Okay. Now there are many things that happen since our birth that we may not know about. However, our grandparents or parents or others often tell us amusing stories of our childhood, right? When you were small, you must have done some mischiefs. There must have some events must have happened, right? About which your parents told you, your grandparents told you, right? But you don't remember any of those events. Now, those stories are part of their memory. That means they remember all those stories. However, when different people tell us about the same event, we find difference in their narrations. That means when they tell you the story, every other person will tell you the story in little different way. Okay, you will find some difference in their narrations. Narrations means the way they tell you the story. Now it makes us wonder which one is right. Okay, like your father will say something else, your mother will say something else, your grandparents will tell you something else, and you will get little confused. Okay, so what we do, we need to examine the details of each narration carefully to decide the correctness of the facts. That means we will hear all those stories from द स्टोरी फ्रॉम डिफरेंट पीपल एंड देन वी विल एनालाइज कि हाँ अभी ये हुआ था, उसके बाद ये हुआ, देन दिस हैपेंड, देन दैट हैपेंड, देन वी विल फाइंड व्हाट एग्जैक्टली had happened in the past. Okay, so it is not possible to conduct experiments to recreate the events that have happened in the past. That means when you were small, some event must have happened. For example, कि आप कहीं घूमने गए थे and you must be lost, आप खो गए थे, ठीक है. So your father will tell you were walking with me and then you left my hand and then you went somewhere else. Your mother will tell you the story in a little different way. Your grandparents will tell you the story in a different way. But you don't exactly remember what have happened, right? But if you want to know the story, what you have to do, you just have to ask everyone and then conclude what had exactly happened. But कैन यू रिक्रिएट द सीन? दैट मीन्स क्या आप फिर से उस जगह पे जाके फिर से गुम हो सकते हो, फिर से आप वो सब रिक्रिएट कर सकते हो चीज़ें? नहीं. हम स्टोरीज़ को सुन के ही पता लगाते हैं कि पास्ट में क्या हुआ था. वी कैन नॉट रिक्रिएट दोज इवेंट्स. हम लोग फिर से उस चीज़ों को दोबारा से कर नहीं सकते. Therefore, the method of presenting history is different from that of other sciences. You know, like in other sciences, we do the experiments again and again to check our answers, to check our conclusions, right? But in history, we cannot do that because that events cannot happen again and again. For example, if we are studying about a war, ठीक है, हम लोग एक वॉर के बारे में पढ़ रहे, लेकिन हमको अगर उस वॉर के बारे में कैसे पता चलेगा? कहीं पे लिखा होगा, हमने किसी से सुना होगा, राइट? बट क्या हम वो वॉर फिर से करवा सकते हैं? कैन वी ब्रिंग दोज किंग्स टुगेदर एंड ऑल दोज सोल्जर्स टुगेदर एंड देन मेक देम फाइट अगेन? नो, वी कैन नॉट डू दैट. दैट इज वाई हिस्ट्री इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम अदर साइंसेस. Even so, history uses the scientific method at every stage, namely while looking for new and collecting evidence, examining the evidence, and while putting it together. When required, help is also taken from the sciences. That is why history is considered to be a specific discipline. History is not written solely on the basis of imagination. That means कि history, when someone is writing the history that this event happened this way, he does not only use his imagination, okay, कि हाँ ऐसा हुआ होगा, वैसा हुआ होगा, then the person writes it down. No, they collect all the evidence, the written evidence, the oral evidence, then कहीं पे किसी से सुना होगा उन्होंने, कहीं पे कुछ लिखा होगा, ये सब चीज़ें वो पहले कलेक्ट करते हैं, देन उसको वेरीफाई करते हैं, हाँ यहाँ ऐसा लिखा है, यहाँ पर ऐसा लिखा है, यहाँ पर ऐसा लिखा है, देन उस हिस्ट्री को पूरा लिखा जाता है. ठीक है. नाउ एंशिएंट ऑब्जेक्ट स्ट्रक्चर, स्कल्पचर्स, पॉट्स, coins, inscriptions, copper plates, books, manuscripts, traditional stories and songs remembered over many generations, etc. are the sources of history. What are the sources of history? See here, you can see in the picture, pots, copper plates, then coins, then books and manuscripts. The sources are the sources of history. Means ये चीज़ें होती थी जिनसे पहले हम हिस्ट्री पता लगाते थे कि ये कौन से टाइम पे हुआ होगा, देन विच काइंड ऑफ पीपल मस्ट बी इन्वॉल्व इन दिस हिस्ट्री. ठीक है. देन बुक्स होते थे, पुराने बुक्स होते थे जिससे हमको पता लगता है कि उस टाइम में क्या हुआ है. नाउ द सोर्सेज ऑफ हिस्ट्री आर 3 types: material sources, written sources and oral sources. ओके. सो मटीरियल सोर्सेज आर दीज, जो मटीरियल्स मिलते हैं. ठीक है. कॉइन्स मिलते हैं, पॉट्स मिलते हैं, ज्वेलरी मिलती है, उनके कपड़े मिलते हैं. स्पेशली इफ़ यू गो टू म्यूज़ियम यू सी डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ थिंग्स. अगर किसी वॉर के बारे में म्यूज़ियम है तो उस वॉर में what weapons they have used, okay, those weapons are there in the museum. So those are the material sources. Then written sources are the books and the manuscripts. Okay, जो लिखे गए थे, कहीं किसी ने लिखा था, कोई किसी इवेंट के वक्त कोई वहाँ पे अगर मौजूद था, तो that person must have written all those events, that how the event have happened. Okay, so those are the written sources. And oral sources are the ones like the which comes through the people, when they tell you it as a story. ठीक है, people tell you that this story of different kings, then story of different states, story of different people orally. Okay, so those are oral sources. In order to find out what happened in the past and how it happened, evidence available from these sources is collected and thoroughly examined to determine its relatability. Means अगर हम if you are studying about a specific event, then all these three types of sources, the materials are the evidence are collected from material sources as well, the written sources and the oral sources. इन सब जगह से एविडेंस को जमा किया जाता है and then it is thoroughly examined to check the relatability. With the help of the evidence that stands these tests, past events are put in a proper sequence and a historical account is written. This is the scientific method. That means ये सारे evidence collect करने के बाद they keep it in a sequence. हाँ, first this thing must have happened, then this thing happened, then this thing happened. They lined it up according to the events. Okay, then the whole history is written, the whole story is written. Understood? So this is the scientific method of writing a history. Now in our next class we will see history and us, like how history is related to human life, human culture. Okay, so I'll see you in your next class, inshallah. Hope you understood everything that I taught you, and if you have not understood anything, please write down the questions that you want to ask me, so you can ask me in the Zoom class. Okay, so I'll see you in your next class, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.